Yo, hey, what it do? You already know what it is. It's another episode of Ringside Mayhem Podcast. And like I told you, man, we had a special one for y'all. Yeah, I told you, we had a surprise for you too. That's right. It was a good surprise. You know, we like to throw some mayhem in your way a little bit. You feel me? You never know what to expect when it comes with the mayhem. You feel me? But I'm telling you, it's not just a normal interview. This interview, if you see the ticker, it's a miracle. Oh yeah, man, because it's about to be popping. So come on in, man. And as we, get this interview started, and you already know, as I say, as you're hopping on in, go ahead and as you're looking on Facebook or YouTube, or even if you're looking on Twitter right now, go ahead and click that little share button right there, right? That little button that says share, right? And then go ahead and go ahead and share it on your pages. Share it to all your wrestling pages. Share, and look, if you follow PCW Ultra, definitely share it there. I'm telling you right now, you don't want to miss it. And hey, man, let's get in and have a good convo. But like I said, we have a ultra. Yeah, you see what I did there? We have an ultra special guest, man. He again, I feel like he's very legendary. I mean, 20 plus years in the game. Anybody like been sticking with it that long? Legendary. And we're gonna talk about his great career. But man, y'all help me give a hand. You put the clapping emojis right there in the comments, but help me give a hand to the one and only, the modern miracle himself, Mr. Steve Madison.
You caught me clapping for myself. Okay, so if I can't clap for myself, who can I clap for, right?
Come on, clap for yourself.
How is everything? Yeah, right.
Yeah. There we go. Round of applause.
Somebody's got to do it, right? That's
right, man.
What's up? Man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Big fan.
Man, I appreciate having you on, man. I was really excited even when you say you consider me, and I'm like, oh snaps. The first time I really got fully, especially got to see you live wrestle was at PCW All Systems Go when you faced the JTG.
Yeah, JTG. Yeah.
Man, and after that I was hooked. I'll tell you right now, I was hooked.
Man. No, I appreciate it. It was good. JTG, phenomenal competitor, great person, and I was very fortunate to be able to make a second shot back up to California and be able to work with him for PCW Ultra. PCW Ultra, you guys have already known. Everybody on the show knows PCW Ultra is the premier wrestling promotion in the United States. I couldn't think of a better place to come back and really work. So I can't say enough things about PCW Ultra.
For sure. Well, since we're starting on it, how did the relationship with PCW Ultra start? Because we're going to dig deep in your career, but how did it start? How did you get in Cali first?
Yeah, PCW Ultra. Joseph Samael and I go back a long way. Joe and I met in Florida 20 plus years ago. Joe was actually part of a tag team called the Market Crashers with his partner, Sean Murphy. And we were on a lot of shows together. We shared the locker room together. And him and I always hit it off, whether it was wrestling, the same type of wrestling, same style, same wrestlers that we enjoyed watching, and music, just on all levels. Joe and I really hit it off. And so we were able to travel together, work together. We were opponents. And then when the time was right for me to come out to PCW Ultra, Joe kind of pulled the cord, and he wanted to bring me out there. And so we have a long-standing relationship, and I'm just happy really to be out there for PCW Ultra and perform in front of the fans out in LA.
That's awesome. Now you said one of the things was music, so I'm a big music fan too. So what is the favorite type of music for Steve Madison?
All right. So now listen here. I'm very eclectic, but eclectic on the rock spectrum, really. Now I appreciate all kinds of music. But if I had my choice, I could listen to anything from Phil Collins to Slayer to Guns N' Roses to Clutch. I do stay kind of in the rock lane too. Some country music, some R&B, some, I try and stay a little bit of everything. But if I'm going to stay in my lane, it's definitely going to be rock music, 80s music, 90s music, decades.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm a big music historian, almost as much as I'm a wrestling historian. So
okay,
I kind of like it all. Now, but as much as Joe and I agree on bands that we do like, there are some bands that him and I just can't. Matter of fact, the other day we were talking back and forth, and some bands, we could go on for hours and hours talking about whether it's Kiss or Motley Crue or the Cult or just different bands from different generations that I really like and he dislikes, and we kind of bond over those moments too, where we agree to disagree.
So how far in rock do we go? Like metal, hard metal?
All of it. Okay. All of it. It's like I said, from one spectrum to the other, from Phil Collins to Slayer, Guns N' Roses, Metallica. I like Stuck Mojo, which is Joe absolutely hates that band, but Stuck Mojo coincidentally, their guitarist is Rich Ward, who is also the guitarist for Fozzy right now. Fozzy kind of morphed into that. So it's interesting, man. Also a band from Atlanta, Georgia as well. Stuck Mojo is. But anyways, I digress.
I'm not gonna lie. I try my best to be a full rounded person also when it comes to to music. I do also would try metal. When you say Phil Collins, I listen more deeply into Phil Collins, but the funny story and true story, the main reason I got into Phil Collins was because my mom had me as a Disney kid. So after Tarzan, I was like, that's it. I need to listen to Phil Collins more.
I could see that too. Yeah, but you know what? I feel like that's a gateway for a lot of people too, to be able to get introduced to that kind of music. Some people are into Elton John that way too. I would be remiss if we're talking about music, and I'll just get this out of the way. My favorite of all time is Bruce Springsteen. Now, I'm 39 years old, so Bruce Springsteen may be a little bit older than the generation of my 39-year-old fellow friends, but I'll just kind of put that out there too. So.
Well, it's cool. I know from my age range, though. Funny story. The reason how I got the name Classic at first was because when I was in high school, I used to listen to just old school rap music. Like, everybody else was listening to like mainly Lil Wayne and stuff like that. I'm like, I ain't playing Run DMC, and they were like, Classic. Get out of here.
Yeah. That's all. Public Enemy too, and so a lot of those. It's awesome, man. That's super cool.
That's amazing, man. So how much do you think music really affects a wrestling style, or really because we can name a lot of like awesome scores for like either theme songs for wrestlers, or even when it comes to pay-per-views, like the end is near for Judgment Day on WWE. You're like, okay, I already know. So how much do you think music plays into wrestling? How much does it play into your your pregame when you wrestle?
Well, they definitely go hand in hand. Musicians and wrestling, they're kind of symbiotic in a way that a lot of musicians really like wrestling, and a lot of the wrestlers really like music as well. You can see some wrestlers, Hammerstone, for example, or Davey Richards. You can see them playing the guitar all the time. And just to keep going where we were, Rich Ward from Fozzy, a guitarist. You catch some of the old Stuck Mojo records, they're wrestling related too, name dropping old WCW records. And so the cross reference is definitely there too. But I think, there's a lot of similarities between music and wrestling. There's a pacing, there's a cadence, there's a certain, you could go by albums, the way that songs are listed for albums. It's supposed to sound a certain way. And I think it's very similar and very symbiotic.
And well, I'll say one more before we get off the subject of music. Does the Modern Miracle have a certain song that he pre-games on before he goes out and wrestles?
Man, it just tends to be whatever it is that day. Like I'm not one of those people that puts on headphones and works out or gets pumped per se. I kind of stay inside my own head and kind of just develop a strategy, what I want to do for the match. And I find music actually more distracting than anything else when I'm actually trying to, put together a match in my head, what I want it to look like. And as far as, securing a victory or the way I want it to, the strategy that I'm going for at that particular time. So, but I see it all the time, guys in the back, I have headphones on and, wrestling or any sports, it just seems like music is part of getting pumped to get out there. And it's just not part of mine.
Definitely. I definitely respect that. I feel it. Sometimes we just get in our own zone and like we're ready already. And the modern, sure. So pretty much we know the Modern Miracle stays ready at all times. Okay,
that's it. That's right. Yes, that is
all
correct.
time. I love it. I love it. And let's see if you're ready for this question, because I noticed you mentioned tag teams are,
Yeah,
so there was one tag team that ran across my vision that I want to talk to you about, and it was the
sure.
Young, Rich, and Ready
Yeah,
faction
sure. Yeah.
with
Young, Rich, and
with
Ready. Yeah.
man.
Go.
How did that come about? You had Kenny King,
Yeah.
was that Chase and Rance, man? Like
Yeah.
you have some good.
Yeah.
Have some good people in
Chasing
this. So
Rants.
how did that
Yeah.
come about, and how did it go?
So that was an FIP. It was Kenny King, Chasing Rants, Sal Renaro, and myself. Um,
Mhm.
to be honest with you, I was going through a few different phases working for Full Impact Pro, who at the time was being booked by Gabe Sapolsky, was actually the sister promotion for Ring of Honor. Or it could even be seen as a farm system. A lot of guys were getting brought up, getting tried out in FIP, and then getting brought up to Ring of Honor. And then actually a lot of the guys from Ring of Honor would come down and work those shows to get more experience or to keep them fresh as well. But
Hmm.
Young, Rich, and Ready, it was just something that was pitched to me, and I was just, I was all for it. They just got four guys who kind of all looked differently and were at different points in their game. Now, the way that I was told that it came about was my particular role was actually to tag with Chasen Rance, and it was actually to kind of polish Chasen up too. And that's no disrespect to Chasen at the time. He had a different style than I did, but I guess they
Right.
wanted us to work together. Not to say to him to learn from me, but to be able to work together, present a different facet of his style at the time. I had a good time doing it. I didn't quite grasp what they were going for at the time, maybe because I had my own vision in my head of what Steve Madison was at the time, and it wasn't
Right.
Young, Rich, and Ready. And so I kind of really, if you go back and watch those tapes, maybe I didn't put into the character and into the storyline as much as I could have at the time. So.
Mm. Would you say that you especially as you grew in the business, that you were put in a lot of situations where they wanted you to be like a mentor type of person? Like I said, not
Yeah,
not really not
absolutely.
really teaching them, but a mentor type.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. When I started wrestling, I came up with Steve Kerr and Jimmy Del Rey, and I started in 2001, and it was done the old school dojo way. And so we had to get in there. We did push-ups, sit-ups, ran the ropes. We didn't get in the ring for a certain amount of time, so you could prove your worth basically in the wrestling business. And if they didn't run you off, then you got to continue on. And so I say that to say, I had a certain style about me, and I had a certain way that I put things together in a certain way I wanted to accomplish and put these matches together. And they wanted me to kind of extend my character, but also put that knowledge or put that not knowledge, but a different way of thinking with the people that I was with. Kenny
Mm.
King too. Kenny King was new at the time. Kenny King was he was on Tough Enough, and
Mm-hmm.
he got a lot of fame and got a lot of notoriety from that. But at that time, he wasn't really polished as well. He's not as good as he is now. Kenny's fantastic, and he was good then, and
Man.
he's really good now too. But they kind of put me in there just to be kind of the old school guy per se, to work with everybody and kind of teach them a different style as well, and for me to learn from them too. The stuff that they do that I didn't do.
I think that actually is a blessing in disguise too, because like that even shows like they saw something in you, over and over
Yeah,
again. Like I said, even just me watching for the first time at All Systems Go, I'm like, yo, I don't know. Like some people say that the term worker, like some people don't, but
sure.
I'm like, you are a pure worker. Like you tell that story in
No,
the
I
ring
appreciate it.
like no other. Like I know other I really see nowadays, so you
It's
really have
different.
that down pat.
It's totally different now. Wrestling's different. When I came up, even in the early 2000s, the way that we learned is different now. And the style of wrestling that I grew up watching is totally different than the way it is now. And I get that more than anything else from people that see me at PCW Ultra, and people that have seen me over the years, that my style is different because it's more of a throwback style.
Right.
FTR gets a lot of publicity now, and they're a fantastic tag team. Now, I would like to say that I've been working that same style since the very beginning. And I was put in situations to succeed, and just growing up in the business, I started because I started when I was 18, and I grew up and I made some questionable decisions in the wrestling business outside of the ring, which caused a little bit of my downfall inside the wrestling business. But as far as in the ring, that was the style that I like to work. Midnight Express, Fabulous Ones,
Ooh.
Buzz Sawyer, Kevin Sullivan, just that whole genre I was always really into. Dynamite Kid. I used to get tapes from RF Video. They used to send out the catalogs, and you could pick out which tapes you wanted. Or it was really before YouTube. YouTube wasn't even a thing where people were uploading videos. You would actually have to seek things out. When I started wrestling, it was a lot of tape trading as well too. And so I took to that kind of style. And so it still comes across in the ring that way, because nobody really works the way that I do anymore. And that's not to say that it's better or worse. It's just different.
Right. Would you say that working in the ring like that is like a lost art?
Yes, it absolutely is. Because I'm comfortable with going in there and working. However the crowd's feeling it, however my opponent's working with, I feel like that I can get in there and work with anyone. I can get in there and brawl. I can get in there and work a technical style. I can work the old school match. I can pick it up. And if we want to work a little bit faster too, I feel like that I'm accomplished enough to be able to do all of those things and work with anyone. And that's kind of a lost art too, is to be able to kind of just be able to put somebody in there and be able to work with anyone, no matter what it is, and not look out of place.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. We just had a conversation on the last episode about it was some comments that Bully Ray made on Bust Open Radio, and we kind of put it out on our social media too. I want to see what you thought about it, because he was saying one of the I'll say one of the biggest differences of nowadays wrestling, and because a lot of fans will ask, why am I not into wrestling like it used to be or anything like that. And he said one of the reasons is because a lot of fans are not into the person as much as they are into the moves. You feel me? Yeah.
Sure.
So what do you think? What do you think about that? Do you think that's the main thing? Do you think sometimes we focus more on moves, and not just fans, but even, like I said, some nowadays wrestlers? Do you think sometimes we focus more on moves and the pop than the actual story?
Absolutely, 100%. And that's just the natural progression of things. Steve Kern, when he got hired as an agent in WWE back in 2004, they used to actually spotlight little articles from their agents that they wrote. And I remember very vividly his first column that he wrote for WWE.com, and it might be archived, so you can Google it and look. He compared it to back in the 60s and 70s, the old cowboy movies. There was a John Wayne movie per se. It was one guy, he had one gun, he had one bullet, and he made it the whole movie before he finally shot the bad guy at the end. And that was it. Right? It's over.
That was perfect. Ooh.
That's it. Now it's Rambo, right? If you watch the last Rambo, the opening scene, he kills the whole village, shoots everybody from the airplane, dropping bombs everywhere, and you have no idea what's going on, and you're just used to it. And that's really what happened to wrestling too. And I watch it all the time. I enjoy the athleticism. I appreciate the athleticism. I appreciate the creativity of a lot of the stuff that's on TV and a lot of stuff that the wrestlers are presenting now. But personally, it's just not for me. And I feel like that to be able to connect with an audience, that you have to be able to slow it down and really try and tell them a story about winning and get them involved in your character and get them involved in who you are. And I feel like that a lot of the fans and the wrestlers kind of just take themselves along for the ride, and it just kind of looks like a fireworks show. And again, that's no disrespect to the guys that do that, and it's fantastic, and it's a time and a place, but it only really used to be like with Lucha Libre, and then you had your Tiger Mask, Dynamite Kid, and then it evolved with the Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn. Those guys could work up pace, and you would search for that stuff, and it would be almost one match would be like that, so it'd be special. Now it's all like that. I watched a match last night on NXT, and I apologize, it just caught me at the it wasn't last night, it was Tuesday night. It was a tag team, a Divas tag team match. There's two female tag teams, and they were fantastic. I mean, I watched them and I was totally blown away by the whole thing. And but it was just almost too much. Just watching it was too much, and you really couldn't digest what was happening at the time. And so it just, for me, it just kind of, I almost held my breath the whole time just watching it, because it was being redundant. It was just too much at the time. And I think that's just the style that everybody's going to now.
And I do remember which one that was, because I do believe that was the Caitlin Carzano, and who was also known as what's her name from Ninja Warrior. because they changed her name,
Yeah.
so now I forgot what they named her.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I do remember that match. Yes, and it was very, like you said, it was very good. And also, like you said, there was no story behind it though, really, because it was one of those where they're trying to build them back up because that was a new team, kind of pretty much.
I didn't know who the babyface was. I didn't know who the heel was. I didn't know if that was important to getting the storyline across. And again, totally enamored with the athleticism and the movement that they were doing, but it was just too much. I see a lot of times on the internet people beckon back to the days of, oh, I wish it was more old school, and they talk about Harley Race, Terry Funk, Billy Robinson, these guys. If you go back and watch those matches right now, I mean, they do a suplex for a finish, a crossbody for a finish, a sunset flip. The match got you where it needed to be, and then it was like boom, that move happened, and then it was over with. Now it's a transitionary move too, and so. Again, that's just I guess that's just the evolution of the business, and I'm not going to be the old man, on the lawn screaming at the sky for no reason. It's people enjoy it, and if that's what people want to come and watch, and that's what the fans deserve too. But it's also variety, so it's almost gone from being the variety show of having those fast-paced matches being once, and then all the other matches being old school for the other 5 or 6, and now it's flipped, right? So now everybody works at a breakneck speed, and then you have somebody like myself who comes and works it at a different pace, and now that's almost like the attraction. So, that's kind of how I feel on the subject.
Yeah, it really have flipped, because I remember, like cruiserweight matches used to be.
Right.
Hey, that was the specialty match. Like, yo, okay, it's about to be a cruiserweight match. Now it's like you have a whole bunch of cruiserweight matches, and then
that's everything now. Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely. I tell you what, give me 1 second here. I got to plug this thing in. And put it next to, because I actually I'm using the iPad that I'm using for this. I don't want it to die on me and lose you guys. So just plug this thing in real quick. I apologize.
No problem. No, you are all good. You are all good. Because you already know we have some ringside news to go on, and as we go ahead and go through that, you must remember that at PCW Ultra Way Out West, you can catch Mr. Steve Madison at Way Out West going up against Alex Coughlin. Once again, you can catch him going up against Alex, and man, it's gonna be an awesome match. And guess what? There's a whole bunch of there's awesome matches going on this card. Again, we're bringing you Toa Leona going up against Killer Cross. You don't want to miss that one. We have Jay Vidal going up against Lucas Riley. We have Denny Limelight. Man, it just seemed like such a ringside mayhem, just family reunion on here. Just some people being on here, man. So many legendary people. It's going down. It's going down, man. So hey,
that show's fire,
get your ticket.
Man.
You don't want to miss it.
PCW Ultra does such a good job presenting, a full plate, a full menu of wrestling, a little bit for everybody. You have the big guys, Toa Leona and Killer Cross is going to be fantastic. I mean, and then Lindsay Dorado being there, and it's just the office for PCW Ultra really goes above and beyond to make sure that all bases are covered. So it's super exciting for that show.
So talking about landscaping of great talent, is there I know it get used a lot, but lack of better term, is there a dream opponent that you still have not faced that Mr. Steve Madison would like to face?
Oh man, you know what? I would like, if there's a dream match, I would like to work a tag or work a singles with the FTR guys for sure.
Ooh, man,
and I feel like that because I feel like that I've been, like, again, just being redundant on it, that I've been working that style for 20 years and same type of matches, and that I'd like to get in there and work with those guys. And there was you don't find a lot of people that work our particular style anymore, and so to get in there to do that with them, that would definitely be it for me. I would like to go back in time and rework some of the matches I had in Japan, working with some of the legends over there, Tenru, Choshu, Kensuke Sasaki, some of these guys that don't work anymore, that are in their 70s, that at the time as a young kid, I didn't realize the opportunity that I was getting and the privilege that I was working with these gentlemen. And I wish that I could go back as a 39-year-old man and redo it again and really absorb those matches for sure.
Well, speaking of going back, let's go back a little bit since you mentioned Japan. And man, I saw this picture and it really touched my heart. And I want to see how you felt about this. Because it looked like you guys had a great friendship out in Japan with Vader and Vito.
Yeah. Yeah, Vader and Vito. Yep.
Man, rest in peace, Vader.
Yeah,
first of all, again. But yeah,
yep. He's
how was that?
Yeah, Vader's a very polarizing character. So to me, he was great to me personally. Coincidentally, Vito and Vader don't get along for reasons that I don't know. I got on a tour that I was not there. They minced words, and that's between them. But at that time, we were happy. But Vader on that tour, I got a chance to tag with Vader that time against Takao Mori and another guy, Koichiro Kimura, who I believe worked for the War promotion too, which was Tenryu's promotion in the early 90s. Vader at that time, he was super nice to me. He said that I reminded him of his son, Jesse, who is I believe he's my age. Actually, I think he might be a little bit younger. But at that time, he really missed being home. And he just took a liking to me. He took care of me. Any restaurants we went to, he insisted that he paid. He helped with any sort of translation that I needed from some of the guys, and really gave me a boost of confidence when I was out there wrestling. And it was, to be out there and work with him in a tag match. To come out, they had his music, and and I'm his tag partner, and I go out and he's telling me, all right, kid, go first. All right, well, here I go. Start walking out there. And then I look back and I see people scattering. I'm like, where is this guy at? And sure enough, Vader's behind me and he's grabbing the guardrails and he's throwing them in the air and people are scattering. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to get in the ring because I don't want to get crushed by anything that this guy's throwing around. And we got in there, and man, just to see how physical that he gets in the ring is just, on TV is one thing, but to see it live and in person, especially on the apron, is something else. And so, again, Vader was super kind to me, and I appreciated my friendship with him. He's a good man.
Was there anybody else that really kind of took you under the ring when it came to Japan?
Yeah. Actually, my first tour of Japan that I did with the Road Warriors. Hawk and Animal were both there. It was Hawk, Animal, myself, Mike and Todd Shane, who are the Shane twins, who are also Florida-based, but they had a run in WWE as well, and as TNA, actually, as the Dicks. Oh no, the Johnsons. Ooh, yeah. Okay. So them and Vito was there on that tour too. And so I was a 19-year-old kid, right? And so my very first tour over there, and Hawk and Animal, they took care of me. Same kind of idea as Vader. They saw me as a kid. But I was there. In my mind, I still had a hard time wrapping my head around being their equal, that I was there, And so when I got there in Japan, I got to the hotel and I got a phone call from my room. So the phone's ringing. I'm like, oh, who is this? My parents calling me or something? Because at that time I'm 19, right? I'm like, who knows that I'm here? I told my parents I was going to Japan, and it's right. Hawk. Hey kid, is this Steve? Yeah, it is. He's like, meet me down at the hotel bar. Okay. And so there is. I ventured down there, and then there Hawk was, and he's like, all right, sit down and talk. And so he treated me as an equal, and those guys are great that tour. So, but I had a lot more interaction with Hawk, who passed away shortly after. That was 2003. He passed away in October, I believe, of 2003, that's super sad. But so Hawk, and then Big Vito. Big Vito took care of me too down there. Big Vito took me to Ribera for the first time. Got me my first Ribera's jacket. Made sure if I needed anything that to call him, and he looked after me. We played Uno. In the hotel room, we decided that we didn't want to go out and party, out in Roppongi like a lot of the other guys do, and we had a good time. Yeah.
See, Uno can get pretty serious now, like so.
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely did. And it's funny enough is that I used to pack. See, at that time, I didn't know what I was going to eat. I didn't know what to expect in my first tour, so I packed tuna fish in my suitcase to eat just in case I got hungry. Didn't know where to buy anything, and then so Vito decided to start hustling me for my tuna fish packets every time that he won a game of Uno. So every time I see him or talk to him, he's like, "Hey man, I still got your tuna in my backpack over here." It's like, okay, I get it. 20 years later, the joke's still funny, but Vito's a great guy too.
I'll get pissed off anytime I see a wild card now. Like you mother.
Yeah, right. Yeah. +4. And now +4. And now I play with my 5-year-old son too, who loves to play Uno. So everything kind of comes full circle too.
Oh, that's awesome. Let's fast forward to family, because man, another thing that other than your in-ring capability that I really love about you is your family value.
Yeah.
Just you one again. Let me say you have a beautiful family.
Thank you.
As
I
you see
appreciate it.
the entire family, and you
Yeah.
it's about to be a year for the little one, right? Almost, or
Yeah.
did
Well,
it hit a year?
actually, my youngest one is actually going to be 2. So my 2
Two.
children named.
Oh
So
man.
yeah. So my oldest one's name is Brock, and my youngest one's name is Brody. Obviously not named after wrestlers.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so
Right. Yeah.
right. And so yeah, man. I did a lot of growing up when I had my children, and when I met my wife too, and just being just I fully believe that a lot of men's brains aren't fully formed until they're in their late 20s, and so they really uh, are self-absorbed. And then until you have a family, and this is not for everybody, but for me in particular, when I had my 2 children, when I met my wife, was really when life started to all really kind of get together for me, and it made a lot of sense, and I'm very fortunate to have all of them in my life.
How did it feel for to see your sons grow a liking to you in wrestling and your profession?
Yeah, it's super cool to see that, and I feel like that. I try not to indoctrinate either of my kids with wrestling. However, I still enjoy wrestling, and I put it on the
Mhm.
TV. And I also, it will probably come up later. I work for the fire department here in Florida. I work for the city of St. Petersburg. I'm a firefighter paramedic for there when I'm not working inside the ring at PCW Ultra. Yep, that's it right there.
Yeah.
When I'm not working at
Awesome.
PCW Ultra, and I when we get a chance, I put wrestling on at the station, or I watch wrestling here. Wrestling's on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. I have old Japanese wrestling that I still enjoy watching too, and so my kids are there watching it with me, and I think that they enjoy it, but they really get a kick out of seeing old matches of me that I have on DVD and that I show them. And I'm proud of the body of work that I have, and for my kids to be interested in it too is pretty awesome.
That's awesome. And yeah,
Yeah.
not at all, not at all. You don't, no. We do not force our professions on people. We do not do that on
Right.
our children. We don't. But we may get them a wrestle buddy
No, but
sometimes. And
now listen here. Now that one, now that is mine. That is my actual wrestling buddy from when I was a kid. I'm telling you that I've been a wrestling fan since I was a little kid. Since I remember watching, and I go back and look at it now, but I remember watching um, TBS at 6:05 is Clash of the Champions.
mhm.
And I remember seeing Buzz Sawyer in Corpus Christi, Texas, right? And so I remember that very vividly. And I went
Mm.
back, not too long ago, and I was like, when was that? And I believe it was like 89. So I had to be 6. And then I remember Macho and Hogan. I used to go, and Hogan and Andre, and I used to go down to the video store and rent videos at the Blockbuster or whatever the local store was at the time. And wrestling's always been a part of my life. And so I've been a huge fan. I'm a wrestling historian. And I just enjoy the sport. And those wrestling buddies are mine. And so I have all of them, and I wasn't getting rid of them. And so, I just
It
keep
was
them around, and I'm glad my kids can enjoy them too.
it was passing on the love. It was passing on the
Yeah,
love. That's what we're
that's
gonna
it.
do.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And you know what? I'm still trying to maintain those relationships to where if they want to get into wrestling too, that I can kind of fast track them and push them in the right direction, and and get them going too. But that's a long way down the road too. So
I'm not gonna lie. I got my son 2 wrestle buddies last Christmas, and he
oh,
was like,
nice.
"Yo, this is awesome."
Yeah.
Because like I remember I had one when I was a kid. Sadly, I don't have it anymore, and it was the ones that
Oh.
talked when you slammed them. Oh
Oh.
god, those was awesome.
Were those the old WCW ones or no?
Yes, I had the Sting one,
Yeah.
and I do believe it
You
was
didn't have the you didn't
Goldberg.
have the you didn't no you didn't have the Hulk Hogan one. Come on, man. I still have that
No,
one.
I actually did not. I actually no wait no wait. I think I had the NWO Hulk Hogan one.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, and
Yep,
pull his nose and punch him in the gut and the whole
that was
thing.
it.
And so,
Yep,
man,
I
I,
had
I
that
was
one.
even in I was in high school by that time too. There was a little lull. I was a big wrestling fan from the '80s into the mid '90s, and then what brought me back to watching wrestling again full time was the NWO. I was always a Hulk Hogan fan. and still am. I still enjoy watching his matches. And as I started to wrestle, I didn't become a wrestling snob. I still enjoy the wrestling that I used to watch, and I just enjoy it for what it is now. And I think I enjoy it more and respect it more by watching the longevity of those guys and how they got over and gave the crowd and made people like me want to be wrestlers. That's ultimately the feeling that we want to convey when we're performing in front of an audience too.
So speak on how hard are some people say it was easier, but how was it dealing with family life and traveling on the road? How was it, especially like starting off and even starting off in the marriage? How was it? Was it hard? Was it or was it a little bit easier for you?
No, it was hard because I made it hard, and at that time it was I was single. I didn't have any kids. I had girlfriends at the time, but at that time I was consumed with wrestling, and I was consumed with myself, which you almost have to be at that point in time. And anybody that's made it in the wrestling business can say the same thing. That's been successful, at least, is that you not that you drag people through the mud, but if you want to be successful at this, you got to go places and sleep on the floor and take time away and take time off your shoot job at work or miss birthdays and miss holidays. And but at that particular time I was by myself, and if there was a place to go and work, I would go and work. And so it was detrimental in the fact that I realized how selfish I was at the time to the people that were around me, whether it's girlfriends, friends, and missing family events too. So was it hard in a sense that no, I didn't have children and I wasn't married at the time, but it was still hard to do, to the people around me to support me in pursuing my dream.
Right. Was it easy switching up when you did get married? Was it easy kind of like flipping the switch, like, okay?
It's harder, man. It's harder going out there, coming from Tampa to LA. I love LA, going out there because we're here talking about, PCW Ultra, and to go out there, to go to LA from Tampa to LA, I enjoy being out there. But sometimes I missed baseball games, my son's baseball game when I was out there the last time. And so you do miss those little things now. And so it's harder. I have more of the urge to want to come back rather than stay and play per se when you go out on the road. And I can, and I think a lot of guys with families can say the same thing. You want to go out there, you want to work, you want to perform, give the fans their money's worth, handle your business, but then you also want to get home and get back to not real life per se, but get back to, the people that support you at your home.
I think you said the main word, and I think this would be a great time for shout outs, because like you said, every family man would know. So how was the support system when it came with with the missus, coming back from a long time, a long day or a long week of traveling, how was it, was it hard sometimes to
always super supportive, that awesome. To be in a successful marriage, anybody, entertainment, postal worker, trash man, landscape man, lawyer, doctor, it's a team effort. It's a big support system. And my wife is super supportive of me when I'm away. She's understanding. She takes care of both my boys too. My family ends up helping out. I'm fortunate enough to still have my parents around. My in-laws are around too. And then when I come back, I take over. When it's time for her to pursue her dreams and aspirations in her career, I'm more than supportive to take over in that role. It's a very, again, using the word symbiotic, it's a very symbiotic relationship. That's the only way to really make things work, for sure.
Awesome. And like I said, that's the main thing that helps us keep rolling, man. To all the supportive wives out there, I'm telling you right now, we salute y'all. Thank y'all, because man, it's hard out there, and so it definitely helps.
Yeah, what is it? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I think that's what it is. But it's the same thing. It takes a village. It takes a village for sure. And it's kind of cross referencing too. With PCW Ultra, it's a family over there too. Everybody working towards one goal to make PCW Ultra as big as possible. Everybody's working on the show as one family. The locker room at PCW Ultra is bar none. That is that's the gatekeeper to being a part of the family, is that if you're not going to be contributing in the locker room as a positive presence and as a talent on the show, first off, as a positive presence, you're not even going to get to be able to showcase your talents on the show. And again, so it's very much a family atmosphere too, which is one of the reasons why I do love coming out there to LA.
I definitely feel that, or we definitely feel that from Ringside Mayhem, because man, them even taking us in,
Yeah,
like the way we talk to them is it's just like family, you know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
definitely feel it, man.
Everybody's part of the game. It's a group effort, and everybody working towards the same goal. I mean, some of the stuff that they've done, PCW Ultra and Joseph Samael, the Sheik, coming from Florida to LA, and then building the business that he's built and promotion with PCW Ultra. Just look at the stars that have come out of PCW Ultra. And I'm saying, I was saying this before I became involved with PCW Ultra, just looking at it from the outside before my time came as a performer. You have guys, Hammerstone, Fatu, Penta. I mean, he brought, Rob Van Dam was out there, and great. Those guys obviously made a career before PCW Ultra, but to put them in there and put them in front of the fans, and then you can go back and go through the PCW Ultra catalog, what they post on Facebook, social media, match of the day, and it's a who's who, a stepping stone. And not a stepping stone, because PCW is fantastic in its own right. But those guys, that's where they get noticed. If you want to get noticed, you go there. You
go to PCW for sure.
That's it, man, for sure. Absolutely. So, family atmosphere and group effort. Absolutely.
I'm trying to remember what was at the time. Was he Johnny Ultra then? Was he
Johnny Ultra.
Hey,
man, some people just got it figured out, bro. Like they just, they got their thing, and everywhere he shows up, it's Johnny Ultra, it's Johnny, Johnny Nitro, Johnny Elite. Come on, man. There's some things that you just look at where you go, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't that's me? And you know what, man? And that's why he's made a ton of money and is so successful. And that those people are anomalies, and it's fantastic that he's had the career that he's had too, for sure.
But I think your name is perfect too, especially your moniker, the Modern Miracle. Like, what was the thought pattern coming up with the Modern Miracle?
To be 100% honest with you, it started off as, again, when I was a kid. When I started at 18, 19, I was in college. They called me the big man on campus, the BMOC, Steve Madison. And I was like, I'm going to have to wear a varsity jacket. I'm going to have to, play up the college kid thing. And that was about the same time that Chris Harvard was on there. Chris Nowinski, right, was on WWE. That was like 2003. Yeah. I don't know if you saw it, but he was coming out with the stuff. And I was like, you know what, man, I got to do something else. And I was always a fan of Kerry Von Erich. Was the modern day warrior, and I was like, I need something out there. And then it was modern, which was new, and then I changed it from Modern Miracle to Modern Revolution, because Tenryu, who's Japanese legend Tenryu, his big thing was Revolution. I was like, I just kind of jumped from there to Revolution, but I just kind of like the moniker. It kind of went with it, Modern Miracle Madison. It just kind of went all together. And again, a lot of people kind of threw in their little opinions on it too. Steve Kern was a big influence on my career. He had, he kind of helped me with the name tweak too. Howard Brody, who is the old president of the NWA, helped me, with some of my monikers as well. And, it just kind of fit. And I really liked it too. Trying to find a character and something that's going to identify with yourself. For sure.
I love the 3 M's. Did anybody just try to do a rib and just be like,
No, nobody did that. But I tell you what they did though, is that you had trunks made, and so you put drawings out, you try to figure things out. And so they had the SM for Steve Madison. They put that on the front of my trunks, exactly where you think it would go. And it's like, oh, SM means small. I go, no, okay.
No.
And that's about, it's funny. And so that's about the extent of the ribbing that I got with any sort of acronyms or anything like that. But no, everything's cool. Everything's cool. And then it ended up going from Modern Miracle, and for a little while, it was Steve Moose Madison. And that started when I was teaching at FCW for WWE. Actually, it was Joseph Samael who made the comment that I needed to change it up. I needed to look a little different. So I grew a beard. I have orange facial hair for some reason. And so I had the facial hair. I got the Buzz Sawyer boots before people started wearing Buzz Sawyer boots. And it was Steve Moose Madison, but I never felt comfortable with that name. And so I just kind of dropped it by the wayside. But I got a lot of mileage out of that name too, especially in Florida and the southeastern United States. People still ask me to wear furry boots and to grow a beard. And I'm like, I am like not interested in this at all. And so, anyways, yeah, there's been a lot. There's been a lot of evolutions of me. And so the one that I'm doing now is the one that I enjoy most, and I feel like that I identify the most with is being myself.
I feel like that experience kind of took a damper out of having a beard now for you.
Oh
I'm
man,
sorry.
I will send no, I will
I'm
send
sorry.
you some pictures. I'll send you some pictures of me with the beard, and it's all. I couldn't grow facial hair, and it was just, it was what it was. I got a lot of help with that character too, from Jeff Bradley, and Jeff Bradley was the original Dudley Dudley. He was the original Dudley boy. He actually came up with the gimmick. He actually came up with the gimmick of the Dudleys, which is kind of an unsung story. And I worked and traveled with Jeff a lot. Jeff was one of the prize proteges of Dean Malenko and Hiro Matsuda, trained with Osamu Nishimura, who is famous in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I did a lot of traveling with Jeff, and Jeff kind of helped me form that character too. And with the beard and the boots, and then I got a chance to have his bull rope and stuff. And so it was pretty cool for a little bit.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been very fortunate over the years to be exposed to a lot of different people at various different points in my wrestling career. And Jeff Bradley was one of the best wrestlers that I was ever in the ring with. And his time just never came at the appropriate time. But you can find old tapes of Jeff Bradley, the original Dudley Dudley. He's on the WWE Network or Peacock. If you look up Dudley Dudley, he's on there, and he's fantastic. Yeah, you should go out of your way to look up some of his stuff. Absolutely,
I shall. Another person that used to do watch-alongs on this show, and especially since you mentioned FCW, who did you work with at FCW?
So FCW, FCW at the time was transitioning from Deep South Wrestling and OVW. They were going to move from Deep South to Florida, and so Steve Kern was an agent on the road at the time, and he was approached by John Laurinaitis at the time if he wanted to open up a territory in Florida because they were going to be closing Deep South. And so Steve, and again, some of it leaves me now, but Steve obviously took the job, and he called me, and he needed an assistant to be there and to do boot work on the ground while this was getting done. And so I was part of the initial FCW transition from Deep South to Florida. So it was myself, Steve Kern, and Dr. Tom Pritchard at the time. And they picked up everybody. They divided people. Some went to Ohio Valley Wrestling. Some went down to Deep South, or some went from Deep South down to FCW. And they were in the transitioning stage of building the FCW arena. And it wasn't a tin can factory. They had a documentary on FCW, and they talk a little bit about it. And that was, I think, when WrestleMania was in Orlando, or maybe actually it was when it was in Tampa. And so I helped try and find buildings for them. And then I came on as a trainer for FCW. I was in charge of teaching the Divas division. And that's not really widely publicized or known to the general public, but people that are in the business and people that were there at the time knew that was actually my job at the time when FCW started. So I taught both the Bella twins, Nicole and Brianna. Then they also had, obviously Natty was there. She was already trained. She's fantastic and a fantastic person. Alicia Fox was there. She came down from OVW. I worked with her. Lacey Von Erich was there. I got a chance to work with her. Chantel Taylor was there. Again, fantastic. Chrissy Vane. There were a number of women that were there in the Divas division. And they didn't have anybody yet to be able to work with them. And Steve and Tom at the time were older. And so they weren't going to be able to get in the ring and work with them. And so that was my job, was that, all right, Steven, so you're not, and this was kind of, it wasn't open, it wasn't said directly, but this was the understanding that it was like, okay, you're younger, but you're not real tall. You're not real short. You're not real handsome, but you're not real ugly. You don't have, but you know how to work and you know how to teach. I was Steve's right-hand man teaching for years. So basically I would teach the same way that he did. And so I learned his style and I was able to convey that to people. So that's how I ended up scoring that job at the time. And then the men were on the other side. So Tom and Steve were on the other side with the men, and they would come and check up on the Divas division too. But that was kind of my pet project for the time that I was there. And then the men's division, I mean, it was a who's who of people that were there. It was TJ Wilson, Kofi Kingston, Jake Hager, Ted DiBiase Jr., Alex Riley, Kevin Kiley was there at the time, G. Rilla, George Murdoch, Brodus Clay, right? Tyrus. I named off four of his names. Sonny Siaki, Alpha Jr., Sin Bodie was there. There were a ton of guys there, and I know that I'm missing some too. Heath Miller was also there, Keith Walker, and they're all just coming to me now, but they were all there. I mean, those guys really did a great job, and they made a ton of money and became superstars, and they all started there in FCW, and I was fortunate enough to be a part of it, of the initial phase. But to kind of wrap that up, my job was to teach the women's division, and that's what I did. So I did. Billy Kidman ended up coming on at the same time, a little bit after. He was hired by WWE Office, and Billy was friends with John Laurinaitis. And Billy did a fantastic job too. So he kind of helped in training the women's division too, but he bounced back and forth. I was solely with the women. So, but yeah, that's how I ended up there. And I was there from July until December of 2007.
Wow. Man, you named some great names, especially when it came to women's wrestling. And so knowing that, and after training, so many, I say so many women that really rose up to great lengths in women's wrestling. How do you see the women's wrestling? I can say the women's wrestling era today. How what do you think about it in today's terms?
It's just different. Wrestling now, it's the TV matches, it's just different than it is. Wrestling evolves all the time, and now you have a certain allotted time frame where you have to hit your cues, make sure that you work. You have this block, you have the next block, you have certain segments, and certain camera angles, and it's not as natural as it was before. When we had Nicole and Brianna down with FCW, they would model a lot of their tag matches after the Fabulous ones. And so because they were twins, they would switch in and out. And you were able to work more of an old school territory style back in those days when they were first learning. Whereas now I think you have less time to develop when you're at the Performance Center, because there are so many people there, and that you just you either sink or swim. You don't really have time to develop. Again, that's just my personal opinion. I don't know if people feel the same way too, but the wrestling, again, everything speeds up. I feel like that it's just evolved in that direction.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When it comes to for me, again, like I said, a personal opinion. It sometimes it feels like they just look for. It's almost like, yes, the Performance Center, but it's like they look for, you have to have it first before we can actually train you. Because So
that was something that. So disheartening is not the word, but that was, when I explained earlier about that, I wasn't tall enough, I wasn't short enough, I didn't have this, but I knew how to wrestle. So they saw my value in the teaching was that now the Performance Center it wasn't the first time, but it was the start of the real progression of, let's hire people for their athleticism, for what they look like, for their pedigree, rather than I want to be a wrestler, right? It was like we would get people. The Bella Twins are a great example. They had no wrestling experience before they got there, and so they were picked up. They were brought to FCW, and it's okay, train them and teach them how to wrestle. And so at that time, a famous wrestler could walk by. I'm not picking on them; they're just an example, because they were male wrestlers were the same way. That somebody that was legendary in the business, Terry Taylor, could have walked in, or Dennis Knight, Norman Smiley. They could have walked in, and some of the people there at the time would have no idea who these people are because they weren't fans of wrestling. But that's at no fault of their own, though. But you could see where some people who are huge wrestling fans like myself would get disgruntled that they weren't given the same opportunity. Now, again, I don't like to use that term either. It's, you always earn your spot, right? And it's so nobody's owed anything. But it is kind of disheartening. Wrestling's one of those sports where you can be one of the best wrestlers per se, but it really doesn't mean anything because that's not what it's about anymore. I kind of give people the analogy of baseball, right? If you can be 2 feet tall, 500 pounds, and the slowest person in the world, if you play baseball and you can hit, 350 every year, you're going to play. It doesn't matter what you look like, right? And so
Right.
that's why I think when Vince McMahon, when they talk about that it's not wrestling anymore, it's because that's not what it is anymore. It's really the performance of it, and the wrestling is a byproduct of the product.
Yeah,
So,
and we amongst fans, people still have that argument. Oh well, sports entertainment and pro wrestling is the same. It's like it is, but it isn't. And like I said,
yeah.
Vince already admitted it's like it's less wrestling in this. It is.
Yeah. Wrestling doesn't matter now. I'm not gonna say it doesn't matter, but wrestling is
Yeah.
the actual wrestling part is a niche thing now. It's people
Right.
that go and support independent wrestling, and go out there and know what to look for. Whereas the common fan now, maybe doesn't necessarily. That's not their style. They want to see the glitz and the glamour. When I was doing some promoting here in Florida, 10 or 15 years ago, I was real big on that personally, of the actual structure and the performance of everything. I used to compare it to like a Kiss concert. Everybody gets hot about Kiss, the band Kiss, being terrible musicians. I don't play any instruments, so I'm not calling them terrible musicians, but people will say, well, they're not great musicians, but they put on a great live show. And that's kind of what wrestling's turned into now. It's, look how big these things are.
Yeah.
You look at the beginning WrestleManias where they would just come out to the ring and have the match. And now, like, the video packages and the setup and the 3D graphics and everything, that's what it's all about, man. And that's how some people get lost in the shuffle. To whereas if you're going to start wrestling now, like, you probably should go to an acting coach first and get that down, and then pick up the wrestling next, because if you can talk, they'll figure out how to teach you how to wrestle. And that's kind of coming full circle to what my initial point was that they're hiring people for that now, and they're hoping to teach them on the back end. They're hoping with their pedigree that they can learn some things, but they want the look first and see if they can make a character, and then teach them how to wrestle afterwards. So.
Yeah, like I said, it is a different time. It is definitely a different time.
Totally different for sure.
Now, one time I would like to talk about, again, I like to say a time of, I guess you could say, pro wrestling. When you was a part of NWA.
Yeah.
NWA Florida.
Yeah.
How was that time, man? I know we talked with Joseph about NWA, his experience. So what was your experience with NWA?
Yeah, so I was with NWA Florida. I actually had my first professional wrestling match at the Fort Homer Hesterly Armory, which is a huge building here in Florida. I mean, you can look it up, and like everything that happened in the Florida territory came through the Fort Homer Hesterly Armory. Dory Funk Jr., Jack Briscoe, Jerry Briscoe, Argentina Rocca, all these legends came through there. And that was, the NWA was a big thing, especially here in the South, and in LA too. But the NWA was the governing body of, the United States, and with WWF being a part of it too. But anyways, to the early 2000s with the NWA Florida, obviously it wasn't what it used to be, but the lineage was still there. And it was, it was a good experience. I was fortunate enough to become the NWA Florida heavyweight champ twice over, being the youngest NWA Florida heavyweight champ. They still had the original belt. And the promoters really tried to make something special and give it that old school feel. But that time when I was involved with the NWA was kind of an in-between time of they were still trying to rebuild themselves back from the ECW fiasco that happened with Shane Douglas throwing down the belts, and it wasn't quite yet where Dave Marquez got a hold of it, and where Billy Corgan has it. And so it was kind of just an odd period that I was involved with it.
Yeah. So was there any real big I can say controversy, or because like we talked with Joseph about his his run in with the NWA title, and
no, he really helped build back that belt and generated interest in it, and making people want to go out and watch the NWA World Heavyweight title. And not to be disrespectful of whoever the NWA champ was then when I was the NWA Florida champ. I don't know, but I know in the early 2000s when Howard Brody was the president, that Steve Corino was the champ, Mike Rapata was the champ, Sabu was the champ too, Dan Severn. And then after Steve Corino, right around actually 9/11, building stopped renting out to wrestling events, and it kind of died off for a little while. And then so when NW Florida was starting back here, they tried to pick up that steam again, and it never really got off the ground.
Man, wow.
Yeah. The NW Florida actually kind of took over for what was local wrestling company called IPW Hardcore around here. IPW Hardcore was one of the premier independent wrestling promotions in the state of Florida, and they flourished from like the late 90s right up until the early 2000s. And what happened was when IPW went out of business, it was actually resurrected by a gentleman named Joe Price, and that's when he brought NWA Florida back. So to be more clear on the subject, Howard Brody had the NWA as NWA Florida. 9/11 happened. He didn't run any more shows after that. And then that branch was bought by Joe Price. And then that kind of took off again. And then there is no NWA Florida anymore, I don't believe.
Yeah.
But but they put out a great product on YouTube, and some of my good friends, one of my good friends, Mike Knox, is heavily involved on there too. And I think they put out a good product, and I personally enjoy watching it. I think, it's a niche product. It's a niche product, but I think people do enjoy watching it for sure.
I think that definitely I do love it because it still gives you a sense, as we've been talking about, that old school feel. Especially when it comes to definitely working on telling a story with each rivalry, with each match, especially when it circling around the NWA title. Period. Trevor Murdoch right now is the champion, and man, that story, real.
It gets people tuned in, and again, to circle back to saying it's a niche, that's not in a disrespectful way, but it presents a certain type of wrestling fan that's going to enjoy that product, and hopefully it expands, gets as popular with the casual wrestling fan that turns on and sees WWE on the TV, that tunes into that. But again, there's storylines, and the people that are involved with it, it's great, and it's good viewing, and I do enjoy watching that show. And I think they've done a fantastic job with that NWA title storyline as well.
Oh man, I drew a tear. When Murdoch won. I'm like, he's been wanting this for so long.
Hey, that's what it's about, man. Connecting with people, and you get caught up in that, and that's what wrestling used to be like. To go on and on about it too, I do enjoy Jim Cornette's podcast as well, and hearing him talk about wrestling. I tend to agree with Jim on across the board 99% of everything that he says out of his mouth, wrestling related or not. And I just enjoy hearing his perspective on things too, and kind of describing wrestling from his vision as well.
Let's talk about it. Let's dive deep into that, because we seem to get into a time in wrestling, especially when it comes to fans, that it's hard to hear. I'll say it's hard to hear criticisms.
Sure.
How do you think that? Because I know that for fans, how do you think it is for wrestlers nowadays taking criticism, especially from, as you said, like you've been put in a mentor situation a lot. So how have you seen a lot of situations where you would try to give some sound advice and it was taken the wrong way?
So I have developed a craft to where I definitely sandwich things. I put things in a perspective, and by sandwiching I mean that I'll build you up, bring you down, and then build you up again. And I've always been that way, whether it's wrestling related or it's, or just around the house chores with the kids. There's a certain way that you can convey your message without being a total asshole about certain things. However, I do feel like that the interaction on Twitter per se, kind of transferring to that, the interaction on Twitter and fans giving critiques to wrestlers. You got to remember, like, the Twitter universe, to me, is like, it's just basically shouting into the abyss. You have to be able to be comfortable in your own skin and to get out there and work and to know that you gave your best effort out there. And it's not for everybody. My style of wrestling is not for everybody. I remember the message boards used to be a big thing. before Twitter. I don't know if you're around for the message boards at all, but there were message boards where they had the faithfuls there that would, basically do the same thing, and they would just tear into you too. And wrestlers would get on there and they would respond as well too. And you have to have that reserve to go ahead and take a step back and know that everybody's got their own opinion, and you can listen to it or not, but you can't let it affect you as well, because then it will just totally drive you nuts. But I think that too many people get involved with the critiques on Twitter. They take it too personally, and then it turns into, a shouting match on the internet. And, I don't think that's a good look for professional wrestling at all.
Yeah. I say for me, I would go on the agreeing side of if you're not per se a worker, why are you arguing about stuff that are working things? Like I said, if a certain wrestler have a certain perspective, I don't get arguing with the person that's in the profession and you're not in the profession at all. Now I can understand if two, that's why I asked about other wrestlers, being in the fence, because like I said, well, for fans, I'm like, for me, it's just like, why? You're kind of wasting your time.
And you know what, man, and to give critiques to people too, you're not enjoying the product, Mm-hmm. I think that fans should take it easy on themselves as well as take it easy on the wrestlers, and take a step back and enjoy it for what it is. And the critiques is just going to, it's going to drive the fans nuts too. When wrestling was real big in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and people were before the invention of the internet, and before when people had the chance to directly interact with wrestlers, they just kept their opinions to themselves, or they voiced it, or they made signs, or they screamed at them on the way to the ring, and then that was it. There was no direct contact. And now I think a lot of times fans in general try and make contact to almost shock and awe sometimes, to see if they can say something so outlandish to get a reaction from a performer, from a wrestler. And so I think wrestlers have to be very careful with that interaction, but also addressing from wrestler to wrestler. I just think it depends on the person that you're giving the feedback to, and their respect for you and how you treat them, all in the same way too. So there's a certain way that you can talk to people and get your point across.
Yeah, definitely. And I again, 100% agree. The Ringside Mayhem family definitely 100% agrees with this. Listen to the Modern Miracle, and listen. If somebody has something to help you with, just take the gems. Now, if they, like I said, even if they're an asshole, take the gems and then leave the asshole stuff out your mind. Yeah. Just do that.
Yeah, you can learn something from everybody, even if it's the wrong thing too.
Right.
And with wrestling, again, there's so many different flavors of wrestling that, not everybody's version of wrestling is my favorite, and not my version of wrestling is everybody else's favorite too. So you have to kind of take that into account too, with who's critiquing you. And again, if they're doing it from the right place too, if they're genuinely trying to help you as well. And so there's a lot of different facets to that conversation as well.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
Definitely. So speaking of, we talked about NWA. We're going to forever talk about PCW Ultra because that is family. But is there another promotion that the Modern Miracle is looking at, probably, hoping to go to or go back to maybe?
You know what? Right now, PCW Ultra is my main focus. I do get calls, emails, messages from people all over wanting to see if I'm interested in coming back out. I've been very fortunate that I've had a resurrection in the career that I've had, and people are starting to enjoy my body of work more now that I'm back working with PCW Ultra. But as far as any promotion in particular, I would love to go back to Japan again. But other than that, PCW Ultra is kind of it for me. But not to say that I won't go and try and do stuff anywhere else, but I'm not actively pursuing or going after things. All of my energy is being concentrated on that. And, and I really enjoy it that way too. It makes it special for me. It makes it special for the fans too. And it gives it something, that PCW Ultra that they have that's different than everybody else. So really right now, PCW Ultra is my main focus.
I'm not gonna lie. I just thought of because I know we already talked about dream opponents, but I just thought about one match I probably want to see. I maybe pick your brain how you feel about it, but Steve Madison versus Charlie Haas.
Yeah, Absolutely, man. I actually was able to work with Charlie Haas, and when he was down, I don't, you know what? I don't think it was Shelton that was with him. I think it was somebody else. It might have been one of the Bashams. But when I was down, here in Tampa, when we had Steve Kern's school, before Steve went on the road as an agent, his wrestling school was here, and everybody used to pop in all the time, especially people that were training, because everybody lives in Tampa, right? Everybody lives in,
Right.
not everybody, but a big bulk of the guys live here. They come to Florida. There's no state income tax. It's very easy to get around over here. The weather's nice, and Tampa International flies out of everywhere. So a lot of guys just stay here. And so what would happen was Steve would have his school here, and if they got done with rehab, and I'm not saying not substance abuse rehab, and some of those too, but if they had neck injuries or any sort of injury, they needed to get back in the ring and work out, they would come down to Steve's school. And so I actually got a chance to work with Charlie when he came down to Steve's school. I did Eddie Guerrero's full rehab when he got out of actually substance abuse treatment. I did all of Eddie's work to get him back in shape for his return to WWE. Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. I did that. I had Edge when he broke his neck. I think it was the first time that he broke his neck. This had to be this was in the early 2000s too, 2002, 3, 4. Edge, Brian Adams, and Brian Clark before they went back to WWE. I can't remember if they were getting signed or if they got sent down. But anyways, I got a chance to work with a lot of guys that lived in the area because that school was open. So I did get a chance to work with Charlie. But I would love to do it now with this skill set and in this mind frame now as compared to where I was 20 years ago as a younger man.
That would be awesome match.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure.
Let's put that in the atmosphere. Charlie Haas versus the Modern Miracle Steve Madison, please.
Listen, the PCW Ultra is, I'm on a pretty good run right now. And so with working with Alex next show, and hopefully I've been training for that too. And, they got another show in October. I know the anniversary show's coming up. And so if I can keep this rolling and if I can get included on the next coming shows, I think that's something that the PCW Ultra office is listening to, and anything's possible for sure.
Yeah, because the last match you had, you was on fire, man. When you went against Yuya. If you heard a guy screaming in the back, "Get him, Madison!" That was my brother. I just want you to know that's my god brother.
Yeah. Listen, man. For some reason, the fans of PCW Ultra, as much as I love them, they somehow just don't know how to take me. They didn't know how to take me with JTG. They didn't know how to take me with Yuya the other time. I always seem to be on the short end of the stick as far as fan support. So I absolutely did hear your brother, because he was part of the minority here, just because everybody else was kind of cheering for Yuya. And I imagine it's going to be the same thing with Alex on the next show too. And you know what, man, just at this point in the game, I'm concerned with having high quality matches, high quality opponents. And you keep still getting the win, then I'm just going to keep doing me no matter what. And so we're going to see where this story we're going to see where this takes me in PCW Ultra.
So since you mentioned that in crowd support, I know if my brother here, he would ask this question. So let me ask you: would you prefer, or do you prefer babyface work or heel work?
I prefer to feel it out, and so whatever. I've done a big bulk of both, and as I've gotten older, I've done more heel work. As I was a younger man, I did a lot of babyface work just because of age. That were the times were the part of town that we were in, and my inexperience at the time too. A lot of times, people, when you're inexperienced, you work from underneath as a babyface to really get to learn your craft. But I prefer working as a heel to be able to control and pace and be able to listen and react to where we're going from the crowd and where we're going, taking people on this roller coaster. And it also be able to put me in the driver's seat so I can kind of gauge where the type of match that I want to have too. So the short version is I prefer working as a heel for sure.
Hey, most definitely. I know my brother gonna love that. You hear that, Mac? You hear that? A heel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's what
for
I'm
yeah,
about.
for sure. You know, it's always been my preferred way to work. You know, and I feel like I do that best.
Okay. And when it comes to competitors, would you
Yeah,
rather have the strength versus strength match like we had with JTG, or the
yeah.
more, versus the high flying match what you have with Yuya?
I tell you what, it's probably a combination of both. I
Mm,
am a huge fan of Ricky Choshu. Ricky Choshu was my first boss when I went to Japan. He was the World Japan Pro Wrestling was the company that I went over for, and I learned a lot by watching him, watching his style of wrestling. Um, some guys in the business like to call it chop meat and grab a hold, which is more I like to work at a breakneck pace, work to win, and waste no time. And so it kind of falls in between of all those. I enjoyed both competitions and matches with Yuya and with JTG for different reasons. Um, but I would prefer probably working the match that I'm going to have with Alex coming up.
mm.
And so I'm just going to totally divert from those two. And I think that the next one, him and I, is going to be something to be a sight to be seen for sure.
Definitely. Oh yeah, that's it's going to be. Again, if you don't got your tickets yet, you might want to get them ASAP because,
Yeah, yeah,
man,
you know, they come, you know, if it's not selling out, it's real close to selling out almost every time. Like the support for PCW Ultra is just it's unprecedented, and it's great to see, you know, 1,000, 1,100 people just packed in the building and ready to see some great wrestling. That's for sure.
so the floor is yours. If you have something that you would like, I'm gonna put his face up here right now. If you have something you would like to say to Mr. Alex right now and get it off your chest before the match, you have the full floor, sir.
Listen, you know, I've said it earlier. You know, I'm a 39-year-old man. I'm having a career resurgence, and I'm very aware of where Alex is at in his career trajectory, the work that he's putting in, and he right now is inspiring me to be the best competitor that I can be. And I feel like that this coming up here is going to test the boundaries for me, and I'm going to let him know, being 10 years his senior, that I'm still the man, and I am ready for any challenge that's put in front of me. And we're going to see where this goes. You know, next coming show, PCW Ultra, we're going to see where this takes me in the future for sure.
You heard it here, man, from the man
That's it.
himself, the
That's right.
man, the miracle, man, the modern day miracle right here, man.
That's right.
Man. So, man,
That's it.
again, it has been a blessing to have you on, man. Again, thank you for coming. Our
No, I
usual,
appreciate it.
but our usual last question we usually have for everybody that comes on, and it usually is one of our most important questions is, when it's all said and done, when you want to hang up the boots, when you say, you know what, I'm ready to leave this behind. What is the legacy that you would like to leave behind in the wrestling business?
Man, you know, I want to leave behind just a body of work that can be appreciated, that's timeless, and for people to know that every time I went out there and put on the boots that I gave it my all, and you know, and try to put out a quality match really every time. I want my body of work to survive the test of time, not be dated, and to cross generations, decades, and for any type of wrestling fan that'll dig me up in 100 years and be able to see something that they like for sure.
Awesome. And that we can't as a fan, I can't ask for any much more.
No, I
Um,
appreciate it. Thank you so much
thank
for having me on, man. And you know, it's an honor to be on the show. It's an honor to be involved with PCW Ultra. It's an honor to still be working um, at this high level and against this competition right now. You know, 20 years in the business. You know, a lot of guys are hanging it up or picking something else to do or not working at the rate that they used to work at. And I feel like that I'm having better matches now than I've had in my whole wrestling career.
Most definitely. Let the people know where to follow you at, where they
Yeah,
can get updates on Mr.
yeah.
Steve Madison.
Absolutely. On Twitter, you can find me at Modern Miracle SM, and same thing on Instagram too, Modern Miracle SM. Follow me and keep up with what's going on in my life and in the wrestling business, and with what's going on with PCW Ultra for sure. Make sure to check out PCWUltra.com as well.
Most definitely. Again, you already know PCW Ultra, PCWUltra.com, way out west. Get your tickets today. You will see men like this guy right here, Modern Miracle, Steve Madison. You
That's
don't want
right.
to miss it. Thank you again. This has been your GM. That's right, GM Classic, the KLASS. You know why I spelled the K, because your boy is just so
That's it.
sick with it. Man, until next time, this has been
Yeah.
Ringside Mayhem. And catch us ringside where all the mayhem, it goes down.
That's it.
Let's go.